If you feel like that you've constantly been learning new information, not retaining, or if you feel like that you're constantly trying to figure out what your next steps are and you just seem to be falling short and you really are starting to come to the realization that you don't really know how to think through these higher level problems that you see all these other business owners be able to solve in the snap of a finger, it's most likely because you're running on an old model that you picked up from elementary school, high school, and even into college, which is you're great at thinking, but you don't actually know how to critically think your way through problems. And that's exactly what we're going to get into inside of this video. You're going to learn different models of how experts think about topics, how they process information, and then how do they take all that processed information and then go and apply it in a million different variables inside of their life. That's exactly what we're going to get into inside of this video. And we've actually got some bonus material on the backside for you that I'm super excited for you to see. Metaphors take super high level information and put context around it because we already have those anchors in our brain that have already been established. So therefore, all you're doing is putting a little break off point from that existing piece of information. So that way, if like Ed did a great job with the mind in your life as a thermostat. Okay, well, we know what a thermostat is. We know what it does. We know how it generally operates. You may not know how to fix one, but we're not interested in fixing one. What we're talking about is how do you level up your life and prevent it from falling back down to your baseline level of what you're comfortable with.
The Bible itself, the whole thing is just filled with story metaphors, right?
Stories and metaphors.
That's how so many people are able to follow in the footsteps of what has been written, because it's a bunch of stories that people can resonate with.
Well, that's what Jordan Peterson just did with his We Who Wrestle with God tour, is he took the Bible metaphors and started to break them down into how to actually think about these things, how to think about large scale topics. And what it was is it was however often he did them, I don't know if it was nightly or every weekend, but he would essentially hold symposium for people. He would hold an intellectual class where he was breaking down metaphors, and you got to see how somebody who is highly intelligent thinks through opaque metaphors that have been translated and passed down over thousands of years. You may not like him for who he is, or you may think that he's pompous or any other perspective that you have on him, but the man is at a high level when it comes to breaking down metaphors and complex thought. And the fact that he was selling out stadiums and venue halls in order to do that shows that there's a lot of people that are really interested in this. He followed exactly what we were talking about. He took a new topic that he was going to study, which was the Bible, and he focuses a lot on Genesis and Cain and Abel through a lot of this. He took that idea, he processed the metaphors, and then he started to put those metaphors into models and shows you what do these models actually do. So he's using how-based models and what-based models, and each one is structured a little bit differently, and they show different results for us inside of that. So with Jordan, he breaks down why-based models, how-based models, and what-based models a lot. He kind of gets into the fourth one a little bit, which are if-based models. So why-based models are all about explaining the reason behind an idea. The why model is kind of like a sales tool and is often like referred to as a value model, so to speak. And the primary role of that is to actually communicate the value to someone who will be either paying money or paying attention to the rest of the ideas that are going to follow. So with Jordan, he starts out usually with a why-based model. Well, why does this matter? Why should you be invested into this idea? And then he usually will tell you, well, if you pay attention to this idea, your outcome is going to be XYZ. And then he'll usually tie it to some level of relevance and make you say internally, oh, that's me. I can identify with that because it's relevant to me. And why-based models are really, really powerful because a lot of people are constantly seeking the why behind things. It's a different person than somebody like an engineer who's searching out the how-based models. How does this work? How do we structure something? How do we get awareness? How do we get distinctions between things? These ideas are actually going to work. Where in why-based models, you'll see things be like in shapes of pyramids or kind of steps, or even marketing funnels are technically why-based models, where the how-based models are usually Venn diagrams. So you'll have conflicting ideas or polarities, and then he'll show the overlap between them in the middle. When we get into what-based models, it's more of like a step-by-step. He doesn't do a lot of these anymore. If you read his book, Maps of Consciousness, he kind of goes through a lot of the what-based models of like what do these things do? And if a how-based model is kind of like a satellite view, the what-based model is kind of like the turn-by-turn directions that you get on your phone. So you'll see these a lot in like matrix shapes to where you have a 3x3 overlap or a 4x4 overlap or like a sequence of things that have to happen. And the main goal of a what-based model is more to show you the warning signs that if you stray off the path from this, here's what is going to happen afterwards. And the last one he gets into when he's kind of in his philosopher mode, you can almost think of it as more of like a before and after. So if I do this, then this will happen. If I clean my room, then this is going to happen. If I implement stuff from this, this is what my life's going to look like on the backside. And these are usually meant to be high contrasted pictures in your mind or pictures visually through marketing. They're meant to show truly that high level contrast of if I take this diet pill, this is going to happen. Or Gary Brecka, if I take these supplements, this is what's going to happen with my genetic processing through my gut. Or if I listen to this podcast, here's why it's going to be so much better than the other side if I don't listen to it. If I read this book, I'm going to pick up these tools to get me to that multi-million-dollar mark. And over time, what really intelligent people do is that they stack these models on top of each other. So they'll learn to stack them in orders that work well for them. The problem is most people get bought into just the if-based model or the how-based model, and they never focus on the why. The why-based model is that one that really starts to structure all of your learning to come into that singularity point so you can stack the rest of them on the backside, which is how I typically do that. And I've noticed a lot of high-level entrepreneurs tend to do the same thing. They focus on the why first because that model gives them the biggest breadth of view for them to be able to identify patterns that other people don't see, or that they have the unique perspective in their life and their business and their genetic coding of then being able to kind of push the rest of the models out and give them the space to do what they need to do.
When you were mentioning the why-based models, I'm thinking about Maslow's
hierarchy of need.
The goal is to get to self-actualization, but you need all the other things to stack to get to that thing.
Yep.
And if you start with that, then you can start flowing into the how afterwards. So starting with why is usually the right move.
When that's Simon Sinek's whole perspective too of start with why is when you start there, the rest of the models and frameworks and thinking patterns that you see and are taught in all these other business books or by mentors or anything else, they don't stack well if you don't start with the why. If you start with if-based models, all you're going to do is compare yourself to where you're not. It's why Instagram, in my opinion, isn't great for entrepreneurs to base their reality off of. It's why you hear, don't compare your wallet to somebody else's, because one, you don't know their life, and why do you even want their life?